All right. So on the next slide, I'll go over our acknowledgements. So this just means that anything we say today is not necessarily the view of SAMHSA. Also, if you'd like more information, you can always contact our center at pttc6@ou.edu. And so just want to reiterate that this was developed in partnership with SAMHSA and through a grant with the PTTC, but these aren't necessarily the views of SAMHSA. All right, on the next slide, we have our learning objective. So for those of you that were with us at Ditching the Discomfort with Data, part 5, we talked about visualizing and communicating data. And we went over a 4-step process. So just to refresh your memories, and I know we probably have new folks too, briefly, we have the number 1 step is what's your point? So when we work with data, we're first going to ask, what's our point? What do we want to point out to our audience? And that leads us to our number 2, which is who is the audience and how will it be delivered, which is a huge step. And we definitely need to think about that as we're creating visualizations. What is the best chart type? Number 3. We'll go over some chart types today, mostly bar charts, but there are other charts that can be used. But for our purposes today, we will walk through using bar charts. How can you sharpen your point? Our last step. So how can we take the information that's in a chart and make it stand out to our audience? Because remember, we only have those 3 seconds to capture their attention. So how can we make our point in the most clear and direct way? So that's our learning objective today, is just to walk you through that visualization process, which we did in part 5 of Ditching the Discomfort. But here we're going to take a really deep dive in using Excel, which is a practical and accessible tool that most of you probably have available through your Microsoft Office suite. And so it's not expensive, and it's something that can really be a useful tool to take you to that next level with your prevention products and how you communicate to your audiences. So on the next slide, our roadmap today, we will do our introductions, which most of you have done. Thank you. We will also talk about why we need to visualize with a purpose. We'll go through that 4-step visualization process. We'll actually create some charts in Excel live, and that'll be a really great experience for you, walking through those steps and how to really declutter and sharpen that point. We'll go over talking about what's the story? What story are we trying to tell with the chart that we're using, and sharpening that message. Lastly, we'll have some question and answer and talk to you about how you can apply what you've learned today. So be thinking about that as we go along as well. And then we will also be doing our evaluation. So make sure you stay on and help us get that feedback so that we can improve our services and what we provide you as our clients. So on the next slide, I am Nicole Shaneborn. I am the evaluator for the South Southwest PTTC. I'm glad to be here today as your moderator. And then I also have with me Dr. Bev Tremaine, who is our epidemiologist. Bev, would you like to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
And Bev and I have been working together for almost 10, probably over 10 years here at OU. So we both came on board at about the same time, and it's been great working with her. And without further ado, well, before I do that, actually, I want to highlight our tech team as well. So we have Ms. Wanda Hudson now, who just recently got married. Congrats to Wanda. And Wanda is sort of the guru behind all this. She makes sure all of us are where we are supposed to be and our materials look good and we are ready to go. So Wanda, thank you for all you do to make this happen. And then we also have Richard, who is awesome at making sure that all of this technology works behind the scenes, and we have our backups for that. So thank you, Richard. And then we also have Lori, who will be handling our chat today and posting chat questions. So make sure that you are watching for those as well. So we do have a lot of people here today. So I apologize in advance if we don't get to all of your questions, but we will try as best we can with a very large audience. So thank you all for being here today. And I would like to now introduce our speaker, Ms. Sheila Boswell. And Sheila has been working with data, analyzing it, creating reports, and visualizing data for over 10 years. So we are very lucky to have her with us today. Specifically, her ability to use Excel is outstanding. I learn things from her every day that I can do differently in my work. And she is our assistant evaluator. She's been a project coordinator around data. She's worked on federal and state grants, producing reports, and currently is our assistant evaluator for the PTTC, helps evaluate our TTA services and create products. So she brings a very creative lens to our products, creates visualizations, and is a great graphic designer. So Sheila, without further ado, I will let you take the reins here. Welcome.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you. That was so nice. And I just have to say how grateful I am to have Nicole Shaneborn and Dr. Beverly Triana Tremaine, Bev, aka Bev, as mentors. And the entire Southwest PTTC team we have so much talent on our team. And so I feel fortunate to get to work with this amazing team in our group. And I'm so happy to be here today and see everyone. And today we are going to go in and we're going to go into Excel, and I'm going to create and show you a couple of examples to creating data visualizations in Excel. But before we get into Excel, I want to share some things that I like to keep in mind, and I'd like you to keep in mind when you're making a data visualization. Because we want ultimately our end goal is to reach an audience and to engage an audience. And so we want our visualizations to be easy to read so we can get that message across. And at the end of the session, I hope you'll take away some practical steps to cleaning a chart, making your data visually pleasing, appealing, but also just understand the importance of taking on your audience's perspective and making your data easy to read. That doesn't make it not a quality data visualization when it's simple. It makes it accessible to our audience. And so a lot of times we think, oh, we need all this information in here. We need all these colors. We want to fancy it up. But a lot of times less is more, because the number one goal is to reach an audience, because you have a goal for that audience to be engaged and see that data and possibly do something about the data. So we want to reach our audience. We're also going to go into Excel and look at some things and make some edits and make it clean and beautiful. But the first step is really understanding that you need to consider your audience. So before we get started, let's discuss, why do you think we need to visualize data with a purpose? And y'all can add that in the chat.
Mm-hmm. And Lori will be posting that question to you in the chat. So why do you think we need to visualize data with a purpose? Let's see, Carolyn says, Sheila, to demonstrate that we are making progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's see, it makes it actionable. Definitely.
Sure.
To share with the community.
Yeah.
so that our
That's
message is
an excellent
clear.
one. That's probably the first priority, is to get it back to the community who gave you that data.
Mhm.
And Melanie says continued funding. There's always the practical end of it, right?
So true. So true.
People will be more likely to understand data and remember. Yeah, remember we have that 3 seconds to capture attention, and the psychology behind that is really interesting. So thanks for pointing that out. Let's see. LaShonda says to encourage action.
Absolutely.
And just that it's easier to read when it's visually appealing. And Sheila talked about making things accessible. Part of that is making things visually appealing. So our audiences who are already taxed as preventionists, right? Don't have to spend a lot of time really figuring out the data. It needs to be something that comes quickly so that folks can move on and get on to their advocacy work. So, all right, we'll take a couple more here, Sheila. The community wants and needs the information, but doesn't want to spend hours getting it and then not actually retain it. Good point. Good point, Donna.
Yeah, and I think that, that hits a great point. It is our responsibility to give, the data that we collect or someone collects back to the community. And so making it something that's accessible to them, I think is a great point.
Yeah, and then Bev says the ultimate point of data is the use of it in the field and the social betterment, right? So we're all here as prevention specialists. We all want to do good things in the world, and part of that is moving forward with making our data visually appealing. So
exactly. And we want to make it look great, but ultimately that is the end goal, is to reach the audience, to make an improvement in our community. And so number one goal, keep your audience in mind.
And our audience is number 2 in our process. So that's great. You all are right on the track. So back to you, Sheila.
Okay, so let's talk about best practices when creating a data visualization. And Nicole mentioned the 3-second rule. That is really an important thing. You have about 3 seconds to grab your reader's attention and to keep it. So we all have short attention spans. The world is very busy. We have a lot of stuff coming at us. And so we don't want to create a data visualization with our data that's going to be overwhelming. So if you look at something and there's so much information, so many colors, you are going to quickly lose your audience. So we'll go in and do some cleaning up, and we're going to limit our number of colors. We're going to create a clear message with our data visualization. We're going to remove redundant information and declutter. I will show you how to get rid of some of those lines. I just love deleting lines in a chart. So, okay, let's go get into these steps. Nicole talked about the 4-step visualization process, and hopefully some of you were able to attend the 5-part data series. If you did not, we do have them recorded and they're on our website, and we will link to that. Excuse me. But session 5 was about communicating and visualizing data. And this is kind of a spinoff of that series because we wanted to provide some practical steps for everyone. And so we have this in Excel. Bev has cleaning to mapping coming up in Tableau in April, so you won't want to miss that. But we'll walk through these steps as we create the visualization. Step 1, what's your point? Step 2, who's your audience? How are you going to deliver it to them? Choosing your chart type, and then going in at the end and just sharpening up the point of your data visualization. And this is not a linear list. As you can see, we have it in a circle. So when you're choosing your chart, you're probably going to be asking yourself, okay, what was my point again? Who was my audience? So you'll be working within each step throughout. And step 1, I think step 1 is really important to be, if you can be mindful and kind of understand the why, like, why are you even showing this data? Why is it important? And really asking some of these questions. We had a lot of great answers in the chat, you know, decision-making, stakeholders, knowing your purpose at the get-go, that's really going to help get your head in the right place when you are going through the 4-step process and creating your visualization, and you'll do an awesome job. So who's your audience and how are you going to deliver it? That's step 2. You'll definitely want to consider things like, how much experience does your audience have with data? They may have a lot of experience with data. They may not have very much at all. And also, if you can work with your audience, that is really going to be helpful, and that will make a big difference. I was tasked with creating some social media messages, and it was for 18 to 25-year-olds. Well, I am not 18 to 25. And so I was able to connect with some young adults, and their feedback was so important and valuable. And I think in the end, we ended up getting a really great social media campaign together. And so you're not creating the visualization for yourself. You're creating it for an audience. And so if you're mindful of that, you're going to be successful in getting that message to the people. And so when you create a deliverable, you also need to consider, which is the second part of this question, is it going to be a social media post? Is it going to be a part of a long report? And those two things might look completely different. Okay, so let's go to step 3. Deciding on a chart. So one of my recommendations is, if you have your data, drop it in Excel, start making charts, start playing around, see what happens, see if it makes sense. You might really see something might come to light to you that you had not intended, and just play around. And then if you look at your data in a chart, a lot of times it's going to look different than when you just see it as the numbers. And here's some rules of thumb when you're choosing a chart. A pie charts often get a really bad name, but rightfully so. Pie charts, a lot of times people will use them and they'll have way too many categories. So they might have 10 categories, and that's not going to pass our 3-second rule. As soon as you see that with too many colors, too many sections, your eyes and your brain is just going to move right on. So you using a pie chart, if you have 2 to 3 categories, is really, it's a great way to show something with a small amount of categories, but it does need to total 100%. If you have a survey question, for example, and your respondents can select more than one answer, that's not going to total 100%. So a pie chart wouldn't be an appropriate way to show that data. And then bar and column charts, we are going to use a bar and column chart to compare different categories. So we'll show that, we'll walk through that in Excel and show that. Line charts, we're also going to do a line chart. And a line chart is a great way to show data that is occurring over time. And then scatter charts, those are great for larger, more complex data sets. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I don't see any in the chat, Sheila, but I really liked how you pointed out the pie charts. So one of the things we also see here that I was thinking about is when folks use like the 3D charts, and how those also can be visually distracting. So sometimes with pie charts, you'll see them in like 3D and people think that looks really cool, but it's actually harder to interpret. So that was just something that I thought of as we were walking through the pie
and
charts.
I think that's such a great point, because a lot of times you think, oh, let's add some depth to this, but really you've added a layer that makes it difficult to look at visually. And again, we want it not to be difficult. We want it to be easy to digest.
Mm-hmm. So I'll pause again to see if anyone has any questions here. Let's see. Jerry says competing data or messages. Say something about this. So if we have different messages, I think is what Jerry's referring to. There may be competing data within the same chart. And sometimes, you know, you might have to break that up, right? You might have to put that in two separate charts. We might have data from several different states. And sometimes you're going to put that all in the same chart, but maybe there's a different message that you want each state to hear from their data. So you would separate that out for each state to point out the main thing that is a priority based on the data. So you don't want to have all of those competing messages going on in the same chart. So we have another question here from Carolyn. Do you prefer stacked bar charts over side-by-side bar charts to represent categories? I find them harder to read. So Sheila, I don't know if you wanted to share anything there, or Bev on the stacked bar charts over side-by-side bar charts. Oh,
I
Bev,
tend to the side by side. Sometimes people tend to have a hard time interpreting the stacked ones. You know, you have to keep in mind an individual's background and previous experience with math, numbers, their ability to, you know, look at numbers in a visual way. And so I find that the stacked ones are difficult. They don't know what the percentages are referring to. So I find those difficult.
I do too.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great question. Thanks, Bev. Thanks, Nicole.
And Chris makes a point here, Sheila. I'd say they can be good if you need to compare proportions. Yeah, that's a good point. Using stacked charts that are all at the same level. So yeah, there's so many nuances to that. And again, it's like knowing that thing that Sheila mentioned, the number one, what's your point? You know, and so that really is going to drive those decisions home. So thank you all for sharing, and we'll go ahead and move forward, because I know we want to get to the examples, but I appreciate all the chat and your participation.
Okay, so we're about to jump into Excel, and I'm going to demonstrate a chart. And before I get started, I do want to mention, and Nicole did say this, but we are going to send out this data and the step-by-step instructions, and this will be recorded so you can go back and review it and follow along and work through this. And, you know, this is going to be my interpretation when I create this data visualization, and yours will look a lot different. You'll choose different colors, but I'm going to give you some of my, by demonstrating, I'm going to give you some of my best practices, and you'll just see, you know, my thought process as I'm walking through it. And so my way is not the exact right way, and when you do it, it will look different, but you'll understand the point as we get through it. And so let's go ahead and create a chart. Our first question, what's the point? Well, we have some data here that it was for a prevention professional survey that was sent out. And the question that we are going to create a data visualization about is, what barriers do you have to becoming credentialed in 2023? And you can see the data here on the right has the percentages of the answers. And our point is to understand those barriers and ultimately, hopefully, try to remove some of the barriers. And we're going to deliver this back to those same prevention professionals, and we're going to email the results. So let's jump into Excel. And I have the data in here already. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's get started. So I have, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab column A and B and go through rows 1 through 8. And you can see I have that boxed off right here. And let's go up to the top and we'll select insert. And that brings all these chart options and different options, but we're going to go and we're going to hit recommended charts. Well, Excel is recommending a clustered bar chart. I think that's a fabulous chart to use. So we're going to push OK. And I am going to pull this right up here. And as you can see, there's nothing wrong with this chart. It shows, you know, the bars. It shows, you know, what we have, you know, that the top 2 are the financial constraints, fear of taking and not passing the test. But we're going to go in and we're going to edit and make it a little better. And the first step, I'm going to walk through this.
Sheila, before you go right into that, is there a way to make your screen a little larger? We've got some folks.
Okay, yeah,
saying they need it a little large. There we go.
Oops, that one was a little too large. Let's go. How's that? Can you see that? Okay.
Is that better, Amy?
I'm going to have to go down a little bit because we need to see these formatting options.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. I understand.
Okay. Okay, so here we go. We have the first step that I'm going to do is from looking at this in the bars and seeing the data, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a title because this is going to be our takeaway. And so I am going to write here, and this is going to help us create and go in and do all the details of our. So I've clicked within the title where it has the percentage sign, and I'm going to write my takeaway: financial constraints and fear of test taking were the top 2 barriers to becoming credentialed, I can spell it right, in 2023. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here. I still have this title selected. You can see the little bubbles around it showing that it's selected. I'm going to go back up and select the home tab and go in here, and I'm going to left justify it. I'm going to align it to the left. And then I'm going to drag it over here to the left a little bit because we read left to right. So when our prevention professionals open this email and see this visualization, I want their eyes, I want that to be the first thing that they see on the left is this sentence. This is the takeaway. This is what I want you to know about this chart. Okay, and so now let's go in and let's start decluttering. So when you have the chart selected, if you click on it twice, on the right, these formatting options come open. And so we're going to go in and we are going to start getting rid of lines, which is one of my favorite parts. So you can see these grid lines, they're really not important. They're kind of just noise for our purpose. And so when I click on it, it selects all of them. You can see the bubbles on the top and bottom. And in this formatting section over here in this gray area, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say no line. You could also have click delete on your keyboard and that would have gotten rid of them as well. And then I'm just going to keep getting rid of lines. I'm going to select the y-axis here where it has all our categories and go back over here to this format axis and go under the paint can. And I am going to remove that line as well. So it's just a little line, but let's just keep going and get rid of it. And then I often like to get rid of the background color in my charts, because when I set it in an email or in the report, I want it to take on and match well with the other parts of the report and just sit on the whatever background's provided. But for our purposes here, I don't want to do that. I'll show you how you do that. And so we have the entire chart selected. And in the format area under the paint can, it says fill. And I could go in here and say no fill. But for our purposes in Zoom, I want that background white so that you can see it really well. But I do want to get rid of this little tiny skinny gray line around it. So I'm going to click on the chart again. I'm going to go down here on this border and I'm going to say no line. So that is gone. And now I want to go in and I want to start editing our bars. We're going to customize them. So I have the bars selected. If you click on one of the bars, it selects all of them for you. And so automatically in the format data series, it opened up the series option, which has these little bars, this little bar graph up at the top. And underneath it says gap width. Well, when we reduce the gap width, it is going to make our bars thicker. So I'm going to go in here. Let's try 75%. And like I said, when you are creating this, it's going to look a lot different. This is my interpretation. This is the message I want to give clearly. But yours would look different and that wouldn't be wrong.
And I can tell you that gap width thing is so important. That's something I did not know was there. And I have, played with graphs and tried to get them to be wider. And knowing that that's that simple little bar there just made my world better. So thank you, Sheila, for showing us that.
And I'm going to keep just customizing these bars. And so right now it has this was the default blue, kind of a country blue. I don't know what you call it, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to select kind of a neutral color. You could select a gray, a boring, just something boring, black, but I'm going to select navy blue. That's been my go-to kind of neutral color lately. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select that. And I still have all these bars selected. And now we're going to go up here to this plus sign. And that is going to open up, it's at the top right of your chart elements. And so I'm going to go down here and I am going to click data labels. And as you can see, it puts the percentage at the end of each bar. And so that adding those data labels, we're just going to put them right at the end of the bar. Then no one has to go in and look at the bar, try to go down and say, what percentage is that? Hopefully this will make it easier for our audience. And now that we have those data labels, we can get rid of this x-axis. We don't need these percentages. We have them up here. So if you go down and click on those percentages, you're going to go back into those chart elements. And you can see the axis is selected. Well, we definitely need the y-axis. We need this vertical axis because it has our categories. That's important context that we're providing. But I'm going to go up here to the axis. I'm going to select this little arrow and I am going to unclick the primary horizontal axis. You could have also just hit delete on your keyboard and it would have gotten rid of them. A lot of times there's 2 ways to do things in Excel. Okay, so we've kind of plain Janed our graph and our chart and just made it, I think, just the basics, just the things that we need to know. We created a dynamic title with our key takeaway, what we want to point our reader to. So let's go in and let's draw the eye to the point we want to make. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click my chart. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to customize these top 2 bar colors. And so when you click on one, it selects all of them. But if you double click on one, it isolates it. So I'm going to isolate this fear of not passing the test. And I'm going to go over here under the paint can in our formatting options. And I'm going to change the color. And so just a little bit about color. If your organization has specific colors and has a style guide and things that you need to refer to, you can get the hex code, the RGB code, and you can customize it using that. They may have fonts that you need to use. So I am going to go in here, use this little drop down and select the colors. I'm going to go to more colors. In our PTTC color, I'm going to put the hex code in for that. So here's the RGB and the hex numbers, and someone will have that for you if you don't already have it available. So ours is 94A545, and we're going to push OK. And now it's a green, and I think that green, it pops. I think it's a popping color. So let's go in and do financial constraints the same way. So I've isolated that top bar. We'll go back over here to our formatting options. And let's go to the color. And it is under my recent color. So I can just, instead of having to put that in again, I can go right there and select that. Okay, so I think that visually we are going to draw attention to those top 2 bars. And now I'm going to go in and just make a few little more custom edits. So I've selected these data labels by just clicking on one and it selects all of them. And let me go up here to the home options. And I'm going to go ahead and make them bold. And I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and just make them that navy blue too. And then I am going to go and select the 15% of the fear of not passing the test and isolate it. And then I'm going to make it the green. And do the same on this top financial constraints. Okay, does anyone have any questions as we're walking through this? How's it going, everyone? And again, we are going to send this out. You are going to be able to go and make your own, customize it yourself, choose your own colors, and have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, we've just had some discussion going on in the chat regarding bar charts adding up to 100%. So I thought I'd go ahead here, Sheila, and point out that with this particular survey, they were able to select more than one option. So you won't see those add up to 100%. And then with survey data, you're always going to have those folks that say none of these fit me, and they write in things. So that's also why you won't see these add up to 100%. So just wanted to offer that explanation there. For your audiences, sometimes it is helpful, and Sheila and I do this. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Sheila and I do this a lot where we will have a graph that doesn't add up to 100%. And you can always put a little asterisk next to your title or next to one of the fields and denote that these won't add up to 100% due to, rounding error or due to other circumstances, just to make that clear to your audience if that's an issue. Again, that's also a knowing your audience thing. Is this something my audience is going to be concerned about? Am I presenting to some data folks who probably will be concerned about that? And so really knowing your audience is helpful for those types of things. So thanks for that rich discussion there. And someone's got a research article posted there too. Jerry says, how do you import this out? So Jerry, that's a simple copy and paste in Excel, which is so nice. So while you're doing things in Excel, Sheila's got this nice chart here. You just click on the whole chart, hit copy, and you can paste it directly into PowerPoint or any other Microsoft Office product typically. Jerry also says the title needs work. We will be refining that actually here in a little bit, so hang tight. And Bev says also you can use the snip and clip feature you can download from Office.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So
I will go. Let me go ahead and talk about adding some context. A way that I like to do it, and we'll do it in our next chart as well, is I'll go to the chart elements. And if you go to the axis titles, well, I don't want to select both of them, but I go over here to the arrow and I'm going to select the horizontal, and I could just put note, respondents were able to select more than one option. So that's a nice way to add a little note, because we don't want to. And we could do the asterisk like Nicole said, and we can add the asterisk to our title up here. So if there is some context that you feel is important in your graph, you can come and add that in at the bottom of your chart using the axis titles. Okay, so let's go in here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this guy down. I'm going to try to get this into two. We're going to work on that title, Jerry. And so now that we have our takeaway, and your takeaway may be completely different, but I want to draw our readers' attention to this title. And so I have the title selected. And so the edits I'm going to do are up here in the font options. And so I'm going to go ahead and make it navy blue. And then I'm going to highlight financial constraints. And I'm going to go up here under the font color, and under recent colors is still that our PTTC green. And I'm going to make it bold. And I'm going to say fear of test taking, green, and we'll make it bold. And then I'm going to go down to the top two barriers. We'll bold and make it green. Okay, so there we go. This is our chart. And let's go back and look at what we started with and what we're going to send in via our email to our prevention professionals. And we want to grab their attention, because ultimately we want them to think about how can we reduce these barriers, and how can we reduce the financial constraints? How can we reduce fear of test taking? And we want them to look at the other barriers as well, but grabbing that attention so that we can follow that 3-second rule and make them look, and then they can dig down deeper.
Thanks, Sheila. Those are great points, and thanks for walking us through that. Just checking the chat here. We've had some resources posted that I wanted to draw your attention to from Dr. Tremaine there about the importance of color in graphics for everybody. And then we've also had some folks looking up some add-in features of Excel in terms of color that you can add. So thanks for sharing those great resources and points. And I agree, yes, Excel is huge. There is so much you can do, so much you can customize. And we really are today just scratching the surface. And so we encourage you all to get in there and explore. There's a lot that's available and it can be really powerful. So before we move on and transition to our next example and go into more depth, we just wanted to check in here and see if you all had any more questions before we transition to this next phase. So I'll pause for a moment and see if there are any questions or anything else that people would like to mention. You can post it in the chat or feel free to even open your line if you'd like to, so we can take any questions that you have up to this point. I know we've been answering as we've gone along, but just wanted to pause. All right, I don't see anyone typing, so I think we are probably good to go, Sheila. But I really appreciate you walking us through that and going through those steps. I think it highlights how important it is to know your point, because there are other things we could have highlighted there. But for our purposes, when we're looking at credentialing, we really wanted to know what those top two barriers were, especially test taking, right? Because that's something maybe we can provide some resources on and have more control over than maybe financial barriers. So those are always things to think about as you're designing your charts. We do have a couple questions, it looks like. Will you be showing how to create a simple dashboard? We will not be going over dashboards today, so we won't be doing that today. That's a good point, though. And if you have further ideas for us, please post those.
Absolutely.
So would you recommend creating visualizations in Excel first and then copying the charts into a PowerPoint when presenting, or creating them directly in PowerPoint? I would recommend creating them in Excel first. They move over to PowerPoint very easily, but I have found it much easier to work in Excel than doing it in PowerPoint. Sheila, do you have any advice on that, or Bev, in your experience?
Yes, what I recommend is, have your Excel file of all of your data and then separate it by tabs and name the tabs of the data that you're, if you only have one tab, that's fine. But say that you have 10 different visualizations you want to make. Well, then you could just separate those in your different tabs and call them something, a keyword from that. And then make sure all of your data are cleaned, and then you make your visualizations. Then you get ready when you're all done. Then you move them into your Word document if you have a report, or you move them into a PowerPoint, or both. But I would definitely recommend spending that time. They say 80 to 90% of the time of data visualization, data cleaning, data analyzing the data is about 80 to 90%. So that takes all the time, and moving it over and doing your report is the easy part. So yeah, definitely spend that time in Excel.
Thanks, Bev. And then we had another question about, are there different recommendations for creating things, for someone visualizing on a phone versus a bigger screen? Definitely. I don't have as much experience with that, except with using online surveys. You always want to make sure that it's accessible via phone. So looking at how that's going to view on a phone, and Qualtrics has that feature. Sheila, do you have any recommendations in terms of Excel regarding that?
Well, not in particular, but you do want to make sure your report, your social media, anything is mobile responsive. And so you've probably been on a website on your phone and you can tell it just doesn't work correctly on your phone view. So you definitely want to test it out on both views, because people are opening their emails. A lot of times the email providers or social media companies, when you drop something in there, that is going to be mobile responsive. And so when you drop something in that, a report, definitely, but when it's on a website, most websites nowadays are mobile responsive. So if you drop your data into a website, into a social media post, just go test it on your phone or in your iPad and see.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just testing things out. Send it to yourself, bring it up on your phone. I've done that before, so that's an important point. And a lot of the online survey tools for data will give you a preview of what it looks like on a phone. But with Excel, I think you would have to send that to yourself and probably check it out on your phone or have other people do that. So that's a good point. All right. Well, I think we are ready to move forward. I see some more things in the chat and I'll keep an eye on those, but in the interest of time, I'll go ahead and let Sheila move forward.
Okay, we are about to get into our second chart creation, and we are working on creating a brief and about alcohol, the health effects and risks of alcohol. And so we are going to create a data visualization for that brief. And we'll walk through I'll show you the data here in a second. But step one, what's our point? We want to create awareness about the health effects and risks of alcohol in our audience. It's going to be a wide span of audience. We want it to go to our prevention professionals, and we also want it to be easy to digest for our communities. And it's going to be in a very short report. So we're going to make easy to digest data visualizations. And so here's the data. Bev pulled this from CDC Wonder, and I just wanted y'all to take some time and look at it and see what are some of the key takeaways when you look at the data here, and anything that stands out to you, anything that you see.
So as Sheila was saying, is there anything that stands out to you with the data, just in the tables like that? All right, so someone says too much. Jerry said too much data to look at. Denise says males have a much higher rate than females. It's time related, yes.
Yeah.
Rates are increasing, good. Different lengths and difficult to compare. So the way it is in the tables makes it difficult to compare, but it looks like people are saying we do see the increase, we do see male and female data, and we do see time phase data.
Absolutely. Very good. Y'all are a great audience, great pupils here. That's exactly the things that, I have looked at, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to show you this chart. This is not a good chart. This is not a chart anyone would want to use, but I just wanted to show you this laid out in a bar graph and side by side. And to me, what I see, what draws my eye is that orange bar here at the end. And I think, oh, wow, we really have, this looks concerning. And so looking at the data, I think the female data gets squished and it's kind of smashed down there, it's hidden. And so we're going to go in Excel and we're going to do something a little different. So let's go and open that. And can everyone see that? And if I need to enlarge it after we start the charts, I will definitely enlarge it. But as you can see right here, I have already separated the data, and I think it was Jerry said that was a lot of data. So I did get rid of the 1999 to 2009 data because I want to just hone in on those 10 years. I want to focus on those 10 years. And that's really kind of when the increase when I looked at it, started going up. So we are going to create separate charts for the female and male data. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab columns A through C, rows 1 through 13. And I have that boxed off right here. We're going to go to the insert again, just like we did on the other bar chart. And we're going to go to recommended charts. Well, as you can see, Excel is recommending their top chart is the line chart. And we talked about that is an excellent way to show data over time. So I'm going to say, okay, and grab that and pull it up there. And then I'm going to go do the same with the male data. So I've grabbed columns A through C, and we're going to go rows 16 through 28. And I'm going to insert at the top, and we're going to go back to the recommended charts. And not surprisingly, it recommends the same chart. And so I wanted to go in here and just look at this, the chart that Excel recommended in our chart we created, and just ask, are there any insights that emerged when you see it visually in a chart rather than as the raw numbers? Anything that looks different than when you just saw the numbers?
And Carolyn says, Sheila, oops, when we want to include them in the same chart, comparing males and females. And that is an interesting question. So one of the things that we're trying to do here is to highlight and make sure that the message is clear. And so we'll show you a way that you can compare male and female, but also keep them in separate graphs so it's not too visually distracting. So good point, though. I'm glad you noticed that. Okay, so we're seeing people say it shows the trends in a clearer fashion. Good. It's not very engaging. Maybe put both together, and we'll show some ways to make this more engaging here in a little bit. See, the line chart is nice. Is this national data or state data? This is national data. Yes. This is data from CDC Wonder.
I do see someone, I see some putting it together, and the scales are different. But I think the things that y'all have pointed out, you see, I think visually we're going to go in and make edits and make some changes to this, but you can see, compared to seeing it in the numbers, you can see both the male and female are rising. And Candace, this is age-adjusted rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, remember right now we're just at the stage of determining what story are we going to tell. And so we'll refine these a little bit, but this gives us an initial stage of, what story are we going to tell here?
Because ultimately we want action with our data. We want to grab attention of the community and our prevention professionals.
Yeah. And I think the comment on age range, I think these are all females. When it was exported, all ages were included.
Mm-hmm. And in the male as well.
In the male too, yeah.
Okay. So just like we did in our first chart with the prevention professional question, we are going to go in And step one, we're gonna write a title. And so that's why I wanted to just show you, putting it in a chart gives you kind of a visual of what's happening. And so we're gonna go in and edit and make some finer points with it. But the first thing I want to do is go back into Excel and put our takeaway. Our title is going to be a full sentence, just like we did with the last chart. And we're going to make the audience, we want it to make the audience care about the data. And our title is going to be crisp and clear. Okay. So, whoops, let's go in here. Go back to the chart. Okay, so before we got on here, I did some math and I calculated the percentage between 2019 and 2020, the change, percentage change. I'm going to go in here and add these data labels. So I did that by clicking on the chart, clicking on our line, going up to chart elements, and selecting the data labels. And so I just want those to show here. And so and this will be included for you to work through. And you can see up here, here's the equation to figure the percentage. We're not going to worry about that right now, but I wanted to put that as part of my title. So right now I'm going to remove some important context, which is that this is age adjusted rate and per 100,000, but we will add that back at the end. That is important context that does need to go in the graph. But we are going to create our title. Okay, so alcohol-induced deaths of females increased 27% from 2019 to 2020. And if you'll come down here and look, the 2019 to 2020 for the males increased 26%. So those are very similar percentages, and that kind of got squashed in when it was side by side. And we want our audience to pay attention to the male and the female data and know that there is a rise, that we have an incline from 2019 to 2020. Okay, so let's go back here. And so we've made our title a full sentence, and hopefully we will get some attention from our audience, and they will be wanting to take some action about this and make some changes. And so here it is with our data labels and our title. And now we are going to go in and we are going to sharpen our point. So that's step 4. So we've titled our chart. Now we're going to go in just like we did on the other bar chart. We're going to declutter. We're going to customize the colors, and we're going to use color to emphasize our point. Okay, go ahead.
Can we make it a little bigger again?
Yes,
yeah. Some folks.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so just as we did before, we're going to click on this on our chart, and we double click, and it brings up these format options over here on the right. And we're going to just start going in and decluttering. We're going to remove these lines, which is my favorite part. And I'm going to put no line right here. You could have hit delete on your keyboard as well. And I'm going to remove that line right here above the years. And then I'm also going to remove, since we have our data labels, and if this is going to be a part of a larger report, so we're going to be able to add, you know, more detail, but visually we want to grab someone's attention so that they will come in and read, you know, more detail and understand what's going on. So I have the y-axis selected. You can see the rectangle here. And I'm going to go up here to the chart elements and hit that plus sign. And on the axis, when I hover over it, this little arrow comes out up, and I'm going to unselect that vertical line. And then one last thing is I'm going to remove the border line. And if you are wanting to remove the field to drop that, copy and paste this into your report and it to match up with the background perfectly, you would select no field. But for our purposes today, we are going to keep it white. So I think that you can see it a little better. Okay, so now we're going to go in and we're going to customize our line, because we want to draw attention. So I've clicked on the line, and you can see each one of these circles here has selected the data points. And over here on the right, when that line's selected, there's the line options. And then there's to the right, if you click on marker options, it gives you options to add a marker. Right now, there are no markers, but I'm going to click automatic. And now you'll see each data point is got a circle on it. So let me select that line again. I'm going to go back to the paint can. And I'm going to go back to the marker, and I'm going to make the markers my favorite color, dark blue. And then I'm going to remove this border. So it's basically a little circle around the circle down here under the marker. I'm going to take the little border that Excel loves to put a border on everything. And so now I'm going to click back over here on the line options, and I'm going to make the entire line navy blue. Okay, so we have a navy blue line, and we have all our data points. And I'm going to remove the data points real quick, and I will show you why. So I go up here to chart elements, and I'm going to go and select data labels. And that's because I'm going to put 3 data labels, because I want to make this easy to look at. So I'm going to click on my line, and it selects all of them. But if you double click on one, it will select one data point. So now that I have the 2010, I'm going to add that data point, because I want that to show as our baseline. I want that to show the starting point. So I go up here to the plus, open up those chart elements, and I'm going to select data label. And then I'm going to go do that. I want to do the 2019 data label. So up to the chart element, select that. And then I'm going to add the 2020 data label. Okay, so I've just added 3 key data labels to this chart. Again, we will have more information that can be read about this data, but this is for visually grabbing the attention of our audience. So I really want to point the eye to this 2019-2020 increase. And so I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to customize just that section of our line. So I'm at the 2020. I'm going to double click on that one and bring it's isolated. And I'm going to go back over here to the formatting options. And I am going to customize that little marker. And I'm going to make him red. And then I'm going to go back to the line. And since the 2020 data point is selected, the line prior to that, anything that I make edits in the line it's just going to be that little section. So I'm going to go in here under the color, make it red. And then I'm going to go to the dash type, and you could choose whatever dash type or keep it a solid line, but I'm going to make it just a dotted line. And since we're in here, I'm going to go ahead and click this 2019 data point and make it red as well. Oops, not the line. Go back and make that navy. Let's go back to the marker. That's easy to do. And I'm going to make that section. So I want the eye to come in and look at the sharp increase that's happening from 2019 to 2020. And so now that we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and edit our data labels, our data points. I'm going to make those stand out. So I've selected one, and I'm going to go up here to home. And I'm going to make them bold under the font options. And then I'm going to make this 2019, I think, let me make them a little larger. Let's make them 11. And I'm going to select that 2019 data point. So I clicked on it twice and it isolated. Have to go back up here to the home options and let's make it red. And we'll do the same with that 2020 and make it red. And so now that we've made our line grab the attention to this 2019, 2020 data point, let's go in and correlate our title to that. So I have selected the title. You can see it is selected, and we'll go up here to the home, and I'm going to make it left, align to the left, and I'm going to pull them over there. And I'm going to change the color to the navy blue. And then I'm going to highlight my increased 27% and make that red and bold. So right here, I want to grab our audience's attention and say, look what's happened during 2019 to 2020. And then one more thing is, let's add the context. We don't want to forget to add back in that is per age adjusted rate and per 100,000. So we can do that in the chart elements like we did in the other chart. So I'm going to go here under axis titles, and I'm going to click this little arrow, and I'm going to add that horizontal title so I can go in here and customize and add that important context. So age adjusted rate 100,000. And I'll scooch him over here to the left just to line up that. Okay, and so we would do the same as we did with the female data and come down and do that with the male data.
Thanks, Sheila. Someone asked you, why we left justify that, and that's because some of the research shows that because of the way we read, that left justifying the title makes it easier on the eyes. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you come down, you're putting colors, you're putting data points. And so what I want to grab attention first is that title. I want you to see that title. And so when it's up there to the left, I think it really, it kind of makes you stop, read that sentence, and then go down there and consider the data. Okay.
Sheila, I just put in the chat why it's important when you download or export your data to begin with to always save an original download tab. And don't mess with that again, and then start doing your stuff in your second tab.
Right.
Okay, so I was going to show, so we titled our data, our chart with our to tell the story of what we saw in the data. We went in and decluttered, took out grid lines, extra things that we weren't necessary, just noise visually, and we customized the colors, and then we used colors to emphasize our point. I think one thing I did not say about font, and I meant to say, is you may have font that your organization uses for the style guide, but if you're going to select a font, make sure it's easy to read. Sometimes the prettier ones, the ones that look really nice, they're not easy for people to read. So my suggestion on using a font is, and we just stuck with the default because it was a simple font, and just make sure it's something that's easy on the eyes. And so I think we might be running out of time, so I'm not going to do the I'm not going to walk through doing the mail data, but here is the before. This is the default that we created first in Excel. And then this is after the edits. And we will send this out for you to look at, or for you to be able to make your own, look at and key takeaways and use your own colors and just practice. And I think we've finished both charts, and we are ready to get some questions, answer some questions.
Yeah, so if you all have any questions, keep posting those in the chat. And then Sheila, let's go ahead and move on to our wrapping up here. And so if you all could post in the chat how you anticipate applying the information that you've learned today. And Lori's going to post that question in the chat there. How will you apply what you've learned to your work? All of these great examples that Sheila has shown you, how will you apply that in your work? It is grant writing season, so this is very timely. Yes, great. YRBS data presentations. That's the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. For those of you who may not know what that is, I'll use more color variation in my charts. Great. I'm thinking about using this to help with data literacy training in our state. That's awesome. You're doing data literacy training. Action reports, program outcomes. Everyone is going to get charts when I send emails from now on.
Melanie.
Very good. We are a community coalition, so when showing data to partners or the communities, good. Quarterly reports, different data I can highlight. I think that was really useful for me too. You know, when I learned how to create charts in school, everything was in black and white. We were told to keep everything in black and white. And to center the chart title and very boring stuff. And so it is sort of a paradigm shift for a lot of us, I know, to move into that realm of making things super engaging, but that is the world we live in. And so this is a really important presentation today as we bring this to our prevention work. Definitely program outcomes. Good. Presentations that will be eye-catching when we're discussing data. Yes. Yeah, and we went from that really hard to look at table that Sheila showed us, which is what you're going to get when you go to like some of the national data sets, to making something really engaging and really showing where the issue is. Because from the original data, I mean, it looks like the male rates are higher, which they are, but the females actually had a bigger jump from 2019 to 2020. And that wasn't totally apparent in that first chart. Color code the chart labels and values. Make my presentations eye-catching. Boy, you all have a lot of great applications.
Yay, I'm
here.
so happy to hear all
Yay!
the great comments. And again, you're going to get in and you're going to play around and it's going to look completely different. I have to show you from my perspective, but you're going to have fun getting in and changing those colors. And just like I said, get in there and play around and see what you can learn and things discover.
Yeah. And someone said just reducing that clutter, I mean, can make it so much easier on the eyes. So thank you all. And thank you, Sheila, for walking us through that process. That was awesome. I think obviously from all the applications listed here, I think that shows just how valuable this was to
That
folks
makes
in the
me
field.
very happy.
So
Here. Thank you, everyone.
so just if you all would, this is a fun little thing to do here at the end. If you want to use your reactions to tell us how you're feeling about using Excel now to create charts and visualize, just use your little reactions there. Yay, I see some stars. Smiley faces, good.
Woohoo.
Awesome. Well,
Uh-oh.
we thank you all. And we're
Thank-
not done quite yet, so hang on with us. We are going to cover on our next slide here. We will go, Sheila, to the evaluation slide since we've already covered a lot of your questions. Just here is what we call our DIPRA evaluation survey, which is tied to our outcomes, which we then take and make into data visualizations. So this data is really important to us. Lori will also post that, and Richard did in the chat there. If you need the direct link, you can also use your phone and take your camera and take a picture of that QR code, and it will also bring it up on your phone. We talked about earlier making our visualizations good for phone use as well, and this is one way we do that. We make sure that you can also use your phone to do your evaluation. All right, so we will leave that link there in the chat. Sheila, on the next slide, we have Sheila's contact info. If you have any questions about today, there is her information. We also encourage you to connect to our website. We have a lot of great resources there, including online courses and recordings of our prior series on ditching the discomfort with data. So please check all that out. Join our mailing list and go look at a few of our products and resources. So on our next slide, we have our references, and on the next slide, also our resources. So those are all available to you to check out after today. I do also want to put, and I will put this in the chat here, my email. If you all have an interest in more individualized TA around what you heard today, please contact me. My name is Nicole Shaneborn. I'm putting my email there for you. And just send me a quick email saying you'd like a little more assistance. And we do also provide individualized TA. So we would love to hear from you.